Well, there were big promises from the ANC in its election manifesto over the weekend, with the party promising to create millions of jobs. It says it will show that only clean leaders, people who are not implicated in corruption, will represent the party in Parliament and in provincial legislatures. Of course, the ANC has promised before that it will deal with corruption and be able to stop its members and leaders from being corrupt. Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast is at the Centre for Security, Peace and Conflict Resolution at Nelson Mandela University. Professor Breakfast, good afternoon to you. Do you think the ANC will be able to live up to this promise to ensure that all of its leaders, all of the people who represent it in Parliament, will actually be able to use its language, pass through the eye of the needle?
I think, Stephen, the ANC has a history of making commitments and not honoring them. For instance, if you take a look at the previous manifesto of 2019, most of those commitments were not honored. For instance, the issue of taking a stand against corruption, growing the economy. As you know, the economy has not been growing the way it should have. I think it has been growing by 0%. Unemployment is sitting at 32%. It is worse amongst the youth. Crime is also posing a threat to our democracy. There are quite a number of things that they have not honored from the previous manifesto. So to answer your question, I'm not sure if they will live up to the expectations of the electorate.
If it turns out that people who are implicated by the Zondo Commission are put forward by the ANC again, if they're on the party lists, is that going to be a big political issue? Could it maybe even be a defining issue for the elections? Do you think people will notice?
I get the sense that the first thing that comes to the mind of the ANC is the ANC itself as opposed to the country. The ANC took a very impressive resolution in its previous conference, in the two previous conferences of Step Aside, which was an expression of a commitment to fight against corruption. But then the ANC of late has decided to ask Zandile Gumede, who was asked to step aside, to be part of the campaigning team of the ANC in KZN, because it is desperate. So if you apply double standards like that, I don't think that the electorate will take you seriously. Because the ANC on the one hand says that it takes a stand against corruption. On the other hand, it uses people who have been compromised.
It's so interesting. There are other things that happened this weekend that were fascinating. So the ANC leader, the President Cyril Ramaphosa, feeling the need to respond to the MK party, said troublemakers have left the ANC. He must have been referring to former President Jacob Zuma. And 5 years ago, the dynamic really was about who supports Ramaphosa, who supports Zuma in the ANC. A lot's changed in our country in the last 5 years. But sometimes it seems that dynamic is still there, that sort of tension, and that somehow Zuma is a big part of it.
No, of course. I think the reality of the matter is that one-party dominance is a thing of the past, and the ANC has been dealt with a blow of late. And the ushering in of Umkhonto weSizwe has compounded the situation. So that's why the president now felt the need to take a swipe at Umkhonto weSizwe. That's why even they brought back Zandile Gumede, because they are desperate, because I think chances of them winning KZN are very slim, and the possibility that they might lose power in the upcoming general elections, that is not far-fetched. So the ANC has a lot to lose as opposed to other political parties.
The ANC keeps talking about the last 30 years, and I understand that. From the January 8th statement earlier this year, and it is going to be a tough election. Is it talking enough about the next 5 years? Is the ANC talking enough about what the future of the country should look like? And its manifesto document does talk about the future, but is it really focusing enough for voters on what the future, Mzansi should look like 5 years from now?
No, of course. Stephen, you have to look back and then look ahead. I think there have been changes since 1994 in terms of the growth of the black middle class, in terms of the absorption of black people in management positions, even though there is a slow pace of transformation in the private sector. But then the ANC could have done better. It could have done better in terms of promoting development for the majority. So, I mean, I think a lot of people, they feel let down by the ruling party in terms of addressing issues such as power outage, water shading, corruption, and because of that, I think the ANC has had a downward electoral trajectory.
It's interesting, I mean, you talk about water problems and load shedding, and we've seen the Water Affairs Minister, Senator Mkhunu, he was saying people shouldn't sort of politicize the issue. But I mean, in eThekwini, and again, you know, every conversation about this election, Professor, comes back to KwaZulu-Natal, doesn't it? But they've had so many problems there. We know that load shedding had a big impact on the ANC in 2021 and the local elections there. Could water have a big impact on the ANC this time around?
Of course, Stephen, the decisions of the ANC have had national consequences, largely because of cadre deployment. I know we're not discussing that, but that's why the DA has taken a strategic advantage of the failures of the policy. Not to say that the policy in theory is wrong, but the policy in practice is wrong because people are not appointed on merit. And that's why, for instance, even at the moment, we have a challenge of power outage. We have a challenge of shortage of water because the people who have been appointed are not the ones that should have been appointed in the first place. So yes, the issue of, water shading, is one of the things that are still looming large in the country. And of course, the electorate will grapple around this issue, whether the ANC does what it takes to get the job done in terms of providing water.
There are many other aspects to it all. I mean, we've got voters who have more choices than ever before. We have a situation where no longer can the ANC sort of attack the Democratic Alliance and think that that's going to get it votes, because it's going to lose support not just to the right or the left, but in all sorts of different directions. Now, it does make this election very difficult to sort of see what's going to happen, particularly because of coalitions. Would you still, after everything that's happened, expect the ANC to be the biggest player?
Yes, Stephen, I think coalitions are the future. As I pointed out to you earlier on, that one-party dominance is a thing of the past. But the challenge that coalition formations of late have been unworkable and unstable. They require a very nuanced approach. By the look of things, it looks like in the upcoming general elections, we might not have an outright winner. Because, there is no political party, in my view, even though the ANC falls short of promoting development for the majority, but there is no political party by itself that can dislodge the ANC by itself unless it joins forces with other political parties. That's why the DA initiated, the Moonshot Pact, which led to the adoption of multi-party charter. So I think, because of the fragmentation of the political environment and lack of majoritarianism, we are going to have a coalition arrangement.
Professor, I really appreciate the time. Thank you, Professor Ntsikelelo, breakfast political analyst there at Nelson Mandela University in Gqeberha. I really appreciate the time.